Hey there, viewers, and welcome back to Planet Cryo. So I have got an exciting build today. We got a 10900K 10th generation Intel CPU. We have our Asus e-gaming motherboard ROG Strix. We have 32 gigs, 16 gigabyte RAM sticks, and it's going to be a nice build. Stick around. Well, here it is. So this is actually my computer. We're actually going to be removing my Z170 chipset and upgrading to the 490 chipset with the, along with the 10900K. I'm very excited because this is about 6-year-old technology. What was it 2014 or 15? The Z170 chipset came out. It was in 2017 that I actually bought all this stuff, so it was still 2-3-year-old technology. So now we're going to upgrade to the 490. So let's get started with this. I went ahead and downloaded the latest BIOS. But I think I'm going to do a BIOS update video separately. It's going to be a different video. Right now, we shouldn't have an issue. All we're going to do is put in the new motherboard, the CPU, the RAM. I'm hoping I don't have to do too much cable management, if any. That would be nice. But I do have Windows 10 coming, so I might have to live without Windows 10, a license for a day or two here. But that's okay. But we're going to, the only difficult part is the waiting for Windows to recognize the new hardware, but that's it. There shouldn't be any reason for using a Cronus Universal Restore. We should just be able to hook this up and it should recognize. Now, if you're going from Intel to AMD or from AMD to Intel, then you probably have to use the like a Cronus Universal Restore to get some of the drivers and stuff for that. However, sometimes it does work. I've seen it work, like on Kerry Holzman's channel. It worked actually once, just going from one to the other. I can't remember which way it went, but nevertheless, let's get this going here. So we'll start with just disconnecting our cables. There's our video card, our USB 3.0 front header connector. We have one fan connector here. Some of this stuff, like I said, I'm hoping it's going to reach without readjusting because I did just do cable management not too long ago. And so there's our main power for the motherboard. Here's our front header connectors. We got our 2.0 USB 2.0 front connectors there. Our audio, another fan for the front. So I got a fan connector there, fan connector here. Those are for the front fans that I got. And then there's another fan connector back here, actually just underneath the heatsink. That's for the rear case fan. Then we have up on top, this case is actually really nice for this. It's a little large for the amount of stuff that I actually have in here because there's not much. And another thing, we are going to be getting rid of the Wi-Fi card, at least for now, because the new motherboard, it comes with Wi-Fi 6. So I'm going to give that a shot and see how that works. It's actually the latest Wi-Fi right now, so we'll see how that works. we have our CPU connector up here, power connector. And then we have, I believe that's it. So now we're going to take our graphics card out. I may not be getting so many close shots. I do have my other GoPro here, but I might not be getting any that many close shots. Just because I don't have another person here, but we'll see. I think I took out the wrong thing there. It's kind of difficult to see. So we got our little connector back here that you got to release the release tab, and just do that. Pops right out. So I just have a EVGA GeForce GTX 1060. It's plenty for what I do. I just do video editing, and so that's all I need. We'll set that aside. It's actually hard to get graphics cards right now anyway. Let's take out the Wi-Fi card. There's just the Wi-Fi card, just an Asus. I forget the actual, what is this here? It's an AC68. It's actually been really good. I've never had any issues with it. And what do we got? We got a few SATA cables here. One for the optical. I kept the optical drive. I don't use it very often unless I create a couple videos per year that I use the optical for. We got our two SATA drives, or our two SATA SSDs. And that's it. The only other thing we're going to need off of this is the heatsink. I'll take the whole thing out here, and then okay, so we are going to need the heat sink, like I said. So we're going to go ahead and take that off. This particular heat sink, you got to use either the supply. This is a Mugen 5 Revision B. You're either going to need the supplied screwdriver that comes with it, that gives you the length, or you're going to need a long screwdriver, the same length. So actually, we got to remove this fan. And then we can start taking this off. Now, you don't need a long screwdriver for this portion, but you do need it to go in the, I'll show you. There's two holes here. You just need it in the back hole that's closer to the back of the computer. And it needs to be able to go in there. And that's where the other screw is. So, kind of like you put it on. I go back and forth a few times, a couple times, whatever. And we were all done there. There we go. There we go. I got to get something to clean that up with in a little bit. I'll clean up my CPU of the old board later on off camera. I don't need to do that right now. But we do have spare RAM. This RAM can go even in the new build if I wanted it to. That's 32 gigs of the Corsair Vengeance. So there's the old Z490. Now the other thing we're going to need off of here, almost forgot, so we're going to need the M.2, the NVMe drive. Actually, I need to get this screwdriver. So there's just a small screw that you need to take off. And once you get that out, the don't lose that screw. But you can see the board is now springy. It's like a diving board almost, and it's meant to do that. So once you get the screw out, that's what it does, and then you're just going to just lightly pull it out. Nothing to it. That's a Samsung Evo 970 Plus, so that's pretty fast. Now this new motherboard is going to be capable of 4.0 speeds, which is really nice. The PCI Express 4.0. There's actually a BIOS update that's in beta version right now, which I'm not going to put on. But as soon as the 11th generation Intel chips come out, they're going to be capable of the 4.0 instead of the 3.0 speed. So you'll be able to get a 4.0 M.2. You'll be able to get PCI Express like graphics cards, the 4.0s, and a bunch of other stuff that's going to release the beast. I mean, it's going to be fast as it is, but so anyway, nothing wrong with this board, and I don't know, I'll probably just keep it as a spare just in case, because I can always switch back to this if I ever had a problem, and you know, continue my work within, you know, just a matter of a couple of hours, I would hope. So I'm going to set this aside. And now the fun begins. So let's do some unboxing. There's just a little bit of damage in shipping, but nothing crazy. I've already had this out and I've already looked at it. This has also got room for two M.2s, both 4.0, or excuse me, both ×4. And here they give you, I really didn't open up all this stuff, so let's see. Okay. We got our Wi-Fi antenna. That's all that's in there. And we have our main component, which is the motherboard. I'll show you that in a second. We also have, I'm going to need to confirm again with this just for the RAM and where to put it, but we have our manual. We have a bunch of Go Faster stickers. The CD ROM with drivers and stuff like that, but we're not going to need it. Windows 10 will take care of that. At least for the most part. Then under all that, we have some extra cables. This is like a first fan extension. We have some SATA cables. Then we have RGB. Actually, that was for RGB. So we have a couple RGB connectors, which I'm not going to be messing with. We have a thermo sensor, which I'm not going to be using. Some zip ties, which I may not use. Here's our, these are just a couple of stickers. I'm not sure what that's for. We also have something I probably won't be using, but this has like a mini fan. I've never hooked one up, so I'd have to read up on how to hook it up. But this is either for the M.2 or up closer by the CPU to cool it down. They actually give you a keychain, which is kind of cool, I guess. And this is, you got 4 SATA connectors, so that's kind of nice. And then finally, you have your M.2 standoffs, which we'll be using, so we're going to leave those out too. So, do the unpacking here. Okay. Bag ripped on this side. Look at the beauty of that. Actually, it's upside down. There you go. We even have a front panel connector of a 3.1 USB, which I don't have, so we're not going to be using that. We have a couple of peely tapes here to remove. So yeah, that's pretty nice. Now there is actually one more thing where I do need to take off the other motherboard, which is all the connectors for the heatsink. So, boy, that board is so much heavier than this too. I think the board is a lot more layers. So when they're fabricating the board, there's more layers to the board, which makes it heavier. There's larger heat sinks. There's more heat sinks. And that's without the RAM even in it. That board is heavier still. So, but I need to take off, on the old board, I need to take off the brackets that are meant for the other heatsink, and then the rear brace for the heatsink. So, I'm just going to take this off. I don't know if I'll leave the CPU in this or not, but we'll see. Okay, so this will just fall right off, which it did. And that's just our rear bracket that we put on the new guy. All right, so let's start with the bracket. Turn this around. Now this is the only thing you kind of got to do this with it standing upright. So another helper is actually kind of nice. Oh, look at this, we got more. Now check this out too. This is actually pretty nice. I mean, the amount of stuff that they give you on the back. You got HDMI and DisplayPort. You have 3 USB 2.0s. That's a BIOS flash. You got 2 3.0s, you got 4 3.1 plus a which is included with a Type-C, and you have your Wi-Fi, and then all of your audio hookups. I'll give you a significant amount. So when you're putting these pads on, or not the pads, but when you're putting the brace on the back, okay, you want the pads, there's pads right here on all 4 corners. You want that going against the motherboard. And then you'll also see that there's 2 holes, one here, one here. Okay, there's 2, I guess they're screws. Yep, they're screws. I almost thought they were rivets. But there's 2 screws here, and those go over top of those screws to clear them. Otherwise you might start screwing it on and warp the board, and yeah, we don't want all that. So then take your screw here, and it goes in, it's the center, the center hole. It's sometimes a little tough to get started. There we go. We got one. We got one. We have two. Now don't tighten these, just kind of start them. You might have to, if you snug them up, you might have to back it off just a little bit in order to let the other side, you know, get flush against the board so you can start them. Because if you start snugging them up, you won't be able to get the other ones in. Or at least not easily. You'll have to like push on the board, and there's no sense in all that. I guess this top corner on this side is the hardest because you got the CPU and all the the heat sinks there and all that. So once you get them all started, then you can lay the board down flat, and then you can go ahead. I guess I'm not really going to do any real close-ups here, but I'll try to. So then you got all four of them in there right now. So now all you got to do is crank down on them. These can get cranked down fairly tight, but just kind of do it in a crisscross pattern, you know, snug them up a little at a time. I mean, you don't want them so tight they're going to snap the board, obviously, but you do want them snug, because this is what's going to hold the heat sink in place without moving around. Got it pretty good. Yeah. All right. Now we're going to put these brackets back on. You'll see, so these brackets, the C, well, not the C portion, but you'll see this is the way that they go on the board. So if I was holding the board up like this, this is the way that they go on the board. All right. Not like this. Not like this. And not like this. But these other tabs go to the inside. So you're just going to lay this down, and there's kind of like three holes in each, well, actually that's only got two holes, but this top one has got one main hole, and then it's kind of got another one that's, it looks like there's only one, but it's kind of like 1.5 or 2 more holes. So that's the one it kind of goes in. I mean, it'll line up. You know, you just got to line it up, start it, and then figure it out. Now, a good thing to do is to have a magnetic screw, which mine actually lost the magneticness of it. Or it's at least losing it, which you can see. So, let's see if we can at least get one of these started here. What the heck's going on here? Okay. Just get it started, put your next one in. And that's it. If both of the screws are going in, you're lined up. Then you can go ahead, snug one up just a little bit. Go ahead and snug the other one up just a little bit. Now you can put a little crank down on it. These ones can get cranked down. Okay. Same thing goes with this. Now this side goes like this. The other side went on like that. Then you just reverse it to the other side. Lay that down. The other screw in, just snug it just a little bit, snug it. Now you can crank down so you know they're all lined up perfectly. Now I'll show you. Don't know if you'll be able to see what I'm talking about. because these GoPros do not zoom in and they don't focus when they're closer than like a foot. So I'm about 2.5 feet, 3 feet away right now. But if you can see it, each one of these corners has just a little hole left over. So that means that those screws go in the holes closest to the CPU, or closer to the CPU. Now this is with an Intel. Now this is a 1200 socket 1200. So it's got 1200 pins, you know, on the CPU, or 1200 pins on the motherboard, and my old one had 1151. So we got 49 more. So now we are going to, oh, so nice. So that's going to be cool. The 10900K. So let's put that in. Just looking for a knife. There we go. This box opens up a little different. It just kind of slides up apparently. Well, it's supposed to. There we go. So, we've got our one box in a box. And then, this has got like a little pull tab right here. So, what we're going to do is just pull it out to the side now. And now, here's our CPU. Take that out. And it's in a plastic container now. Now before I do that, I'm going to release this, and I'll just show you, if you haven't seen any of the other videos. There's a, oh, look at that. This is something I didn't realize. Now, it's probably with my other board, but I didn't realize it. So we have to take this bracket back off because the locking mechanism is underneath this bracket, and I didn't realize that. So that was my bad. That's all right. It's okay to make mistakes. It's not a big deal. We can actually just loosen up the other one, and it spins out of the way. So you can see now this locking mechanism right here. You're just gonna push down just a little bit, pull over towards me, and then we're gonna lift up on it. Okay. I wish I could get closer. I mean, I could shoot with the other GoPro, but it's hard to do all with one hand. I do not have another stand. But what we could do is let me possibly raise this up. I don't know how much it's going to help. Okay. So now what we're going to do is just open this up. Just open up with your hands. Make sure the board, especially if you're buying something used or an open box, check the CPU or the pins where the CPU would go on the motherboard. You should see it, you know, when you shine a light on it, you should see the reflections. The reflections shouldn't change dramatically when you're looking at it in one spot and you look all over it. They shouldn't be changing. Other than you have pins going one direction, like half of it goes one direction, the other half of it goes the other direction. That's the only exception. Otherwise, you get some sort of a bent pin. But they look very good. I mean, they should be. It's brand new. So then what you're going to do is you're going to get your, there's a little tab right here, okay, and you just put your thumbnail under it, and it's very easy to open. Just open it up like this. Try not to touch the actual top of the CPU. It's not going to hurt it, but just try not to get a bunch of oils all over your hand. And just grab it by the sides, just like this, and lift up. And you're going to find there should be an arrow. Usually the writing on Intel goes with the writing on the board, and which it does appear to. So on CPUs you have a couple of different things, but this one doesn't have an actual well, it has a little triangle right here in this corner, but also has cutouts on either side right here. Now you can actually find the triangle usually on the board, and you can find where the cutouts are on the CPU socket itself, which I can see over on the lower half. I am not seeing a triangle, but I am seeing a dot. So there's a triangle on the actual CPU, but there's actually a dot on the motherboard indicating where that triangle should be going. So what you're going to do is just take it like that, and then gently, ever so gently, set one edge down. Okay. And then the other, and it's in place. Now what you could do to test that is just wiggle it back and forth. If it's not like rotating crazy, then you're fine. So we're looking good. Now I'm not going to tip the board up right now because that would be foolish of me. But then all you're going to do is lower this. Make sure it's going to go underneath. There's a screw, which I'll show you on the board. So leave that you can leave that plastic piece on. It'll automatically pop off, or it should. And then just take your retention lever and go downwards, and just make sure you're under that board. And there. The plastic piece did pop off. I'll show you. See, it's loose. So this piece, do not throw it away. You need that for an RMA. If you have to send this board back, you need this piece on, or else they won't. Or else the warranty is invalid. So, or void, or whatever you want to call it. But there you go. So the retention lever is down. There's a screw right here that that this whole entire CPU, the holder, if you will, goes under. So that is that. Now we're going to put our screw back in for the bracket that we uninstalled here again. Okay. We are good there. Now we're going to put in our hard drive. Now there's two places we can put this. We can either put it right here, or we can put it right here. So there's two places, here and here. We will do a quick look on the manual. I believe the upper one you have to enable in the BIOS, unless it's automatically done. You have to enable that for the ×4. The lower one is automatic, I believe. So we're going to find that out right here together. And I think the lower one, it might disable. It automatically goes in a ×4, but it automatically disables like SATA 5 and 6. So you lose a couple SATA ports. So in that case, we're just going to put it in the top anyway. Okay, so M.2-1 supports PCIe Express 3.0 x 4 and SATA mode keyM design for, okay. When M.2-1 is operating in SATA mode, SATA 6G-2 will be disabled. So we're not going to enable it in SATA mode, but we just have to make sure in the BIOS later on. So we're going to put it in the top slot. But unfortunately, we got to take off this entire thing here, which is kind of a bummer. It'd almost be easier just to do this one. This is just plastic, by the way. This entire piece, just plastic. That's all it is. And that exposes the heatsink for the M.2. Now this M.2 has got a thermal paste under it, which we can utilize if we want. That's supposed to cool the NVMe drive. So we have got to install one of the, now I have one on the old board, but we're going to use the one that came from this board. It's just a standoff. So you'll see there's two standoffs because we have room for two NVMe drives or two M.2 drives. So we're going to take a screw from it and a standoff. Now the standoff does require I believe a 7mm, which I'm going to have to go to get, so I'm going to cut the video right here and go and get that. All right, so I got it. This is actually a 3/16. So we're going to put that sucker in. Show you where I put that. So you have, here's your upper M.2 expansion slot, and you have three options. It's the length of the M.2 that you're going to put in. Ours is the longest, so we're going the longest. The one on the outside is meant for the heatsink itself. We're going to take our M.2 and all you're going to do is put it in like so, just like this. That's it. See how springy it is again? Take our screw that we got from the motherboard packaging. Put that in. You do not have to put a lot of stress on that. That's a very small screw. That's it. Now we have our ooh, look at that. Okay, so these screws that are on the heatsink are actually retention screws, so they won't remove, they won't fall out. I guess that's all right. So then you're going to remove you got to peel up the plastic that's protecting the heatsink stickiness here, if I can. And we're going to put this back on in the correct orientation. There we go. Okay, those don't need a lot of torque either. You're just going to just put that on. So now there's the finished NVMe installation. And we're going to put this cover back on. If I can figure out how this went, like a dummy. Okay. Another thing, I like to keep these CPU boxes in case you start acquiring more CPUs, you have, somewhere to put them. That's just my thing. So now we can put in the RAM. I went with the two 16 gigabyte sticks instead of 4 8s. That way all I would have to do is upgrade to another 2 16 gigabytes. We're still going to put it in dual channel, which I do have to confirm again. I believe it's the most outside stick and the second to the most inside stick. Those are the two that we're going to occupy, which is, usually they say it on here. Well, I do not see anything on this board, unfortunately. Boy, unless it's under the heatsink, or not the heatsink, but the plastic piece we just removed. This board is not telling me Interesting. Oh, I see where it is. It's underneath. It's underneath this bracket that we put on, so it's kind of hard to see. So we have. All right, so I don't even have to look at the manual. So if we're just using our first selection, which is DIM A2 and B2. So I was right. So we're going to be using this slot and the outside slot. So we're going to get this RAM out somehow, one way or another. This is my first time having RGB RAM. So exciting. So we have one. Now this has got a notch in it, which is set off to one side or the other, which you can see the notches right here. Now it's safe to touch anywhere on this because it's got heat sinks on both sides and the top, but do your best not to ever touch the gold plated pins where the oil's on your fingers and whatnot. So and you'll see on the motherboard that they have notches also. So you can, if I lined it up, you know, this way, I can see that notch is never going to line up and it just won't go in. And I would just end up damaging something if I put a lot of pressure on it. So we'll start with the most inside one. Oh, how about we open up the clamps. Okay, so this one also I want to mention. This is one of the ones I don't care for as much, but so this side, see how these retaining clasps, they actually open and they close? The other side does not, so it's only this side, so but we only need the two. I actually prefer it the other way, so you just line it up and then push down one side and then the other, and you'll hear that audible click. Get our remaining stick here. Now listen for the click. You should hear it twice. If you don't hear it, take it back out and try it again. You should be hearing those clicks. To make sure you're seated properly and you don't have any boot issues, you might get a blue screen or something like that and you'll be wondering why. So you want to make sure those are in. Now, with the RGB, I'm sure a lot of you know, but the RGB, this white portion on the top of the RAM sticks is going to light up automatically. That's not controllable, but it's just going to give you nice flashy colors. I figured, you know what, why not? I got an open, well, not an open case, but I got a case that is, got a plexiglass on the outside, and my other motherboard actually lit up a little bit. It had like heartbeats or some pulsing or something like that that you could set. It was okay to look at, but I think this is going to be a little bit better because you have two other points, which being here and here, that will light up on this board also. Plus I have the option of buying RGB. All right, so now we're going to clean off the, oh, so where that fan actually goes is right here. I'm not going to need it. I'm not really actually gaming. I'm just doing video editing and high usage of the computer, but not gaming to where it's going to be overheating. I don't need it. I'm not overclocking this either. So it's not worth it to me. So we're going to clean off our heatsink. Just got some leftovers. Not the type of leftovers in the fridge. Got thermal paste left over. That looks good. Nice and pretty. Okay, enough of that. Now, we have our thermal paste. Actually, alright, so let's put our thermal paste on. There's so many different ways that people do this, and my way is the way that Kerry Holzman does it. I find it, in my head, a better way than just putting a a pea-size dot or an X or whatever else, whatever other letter of the alphabet they're using. And then I spread it with my fingers to make sure it's all even, and then I dab it to get rid of any possible like air bubbles. So that's just the way I found out from him. I learned how to build PCs primarily from him. There's been some other sources, but so I just put roughly a pea size in the center, yes. And then what I'll do is I'll take this, because I don't want to get it all over my fingers, and then I'll spread it, right? Spread it to the corners. I'm actually not liking this stuff very much. We're not going to use this. For some reason, I'm not liking this thermal paste. It's not very spreadable. That's all I'm going to say. It's not spreadable. I don't like that thermal paste. So we're going to opt not to use that. I have some other. I'm probably going to throw that out. But we're going to have to clean this off. The stuff that I did get on there, unfortunately. Unfortunately. That's okay. It's okay. So we have and when you do this, just make sure that all the alcohol is completely evaporated. It should happen in less than a minute, depending on how much you got there. In my case, it's already done. So I have this other thermal paste that actually came with this heatsink, which I'm going to throw that other stuff out. Even though it's like Corsair, it may be just the style. But anyway. That's it. We just need a thin, very thin layer. Alright, so when you're putting the heatsink on, you can see how this bottom portion is offset. So the offset portion, this part is going towards the RAM side, because when you have taller RAM, this makes for the clearance of it. So, and then there's a little notch here for heat sinks and whatnot. So you just kind of lower it on there, like so. Now we take our screwdriver, just get it started, and then get the other one started. Have any problem? Now, when you're doing this, you get them both started. Kind of do like, 2 or 3 turns one side, and a couple turns the other side. A couple turns the other side. And you're going to do this until it bottoms out. You're not going to be able to turn it anymore. There, it bottomed out. There's nothing left. This one should bottom out pretty quick too, right there. That's it. Now you can grab the whole entire thing. Man, this is a lot heavier than that other board. Whew. All right. So we are actually all done out here. The next step is actually to put it in the computer. I don't know if I can get a couple more inches here. The other thing you got to take out is that I/O shield for the old motherboard. This one has a built-in one. So I think what I'm going to do with this is lay it down. I know you won't be able to really see, but I just want to be confident that it's in for this one. It's a $300 motherboard. And I don't want to mess it up. Not that I would, but so we're going to set that right there. And I'm sorry, I'm going to be in the way for a minute. Now, I'll tell you, I don't know if it's the case or it's the actual motherboard itself, because the I/O shield is built in, but it seems like the holes don't line up quite as nicely as the old. So we're gonna see how this goes. I'm actually gonna go and magnetize this again. Okay, so now it should be magnetized pretty good. Let me see something here. Make sure. Could be the case too, because the case seems a little. Oh well, I thought I had something under it, but I don't. So I think the case might be a little warped, to be honest, which is. We're getting there. I want to put them in all loose too, don't forget that. Alright, so now that they're all in, I'm going to just snug all these up, and then we can stand the case back up. And then figure out about our wiring, and if I have to do some more cable management, or if it's going to be okay, or, you know, let's hope for the best. I do like the way this motherboard looks though, it looks nice. Now, this is not by far the you know, most top end of the line motherboard. I mean, from here, this is actually, from what I've seen anyway, this motherboard is about one of the highest mid-range motherboards you can get, because after the $300 price range, you really start to jump up to about double that, about, you know, the 650, 750 range, and then it goes up from there. So this is, I think my other motherboard was about 150. So I went from, I would say, the bottom mid-range to the top mid-range. Or, you know, if you want to consider the other motherboard, you know, I don't know. The other one was pretty good. It was the first generation of the NVMe M.2 slots. It was, it has USB Type-C on it. So, you know, it was the first generation of that. All right, here we go. Not too shabby. Looks like this connector is going to be good. This one up here is definitely good. All the SATAs are going to be good. 3.0 is going to be good. The front header connector. So it looks like we're going to be pretty much all set. And one of the reasons being, I think a lot of it's standardized where they're located, or abouts where they're located, but I think because I went from Asus to another Asus, that helped out slightly. Now, one thing I do want to see if we got in here, I don't think we do, but I like what Gigabyte does. They include a, yeah, so Asus doesn't do that, but what Gigabyte does is they include a front panel connector adapter. So you can plug these into it, and then from there, it's actually pretty easy. So I think what we'll do is we'll start with that, since it's one of the most difficult, I would say. We have, I might have to look in the manual because these are way too small to even read, but I think they go on the same. Let's just take a quick peek. Okay, so let's see. Power LED is at the top. Yes, it is. And then we have our power reset, which is, this should be all the same. I haven't done enough of these to get used to exactly where they all are for all the more modern motherboards. So we have our so we have our power LED, and we have our power reset. Yep. So that's the one next to it. So that they do go in the current orientation that I have them in. So we're going to attempt to put these all in. That was easy. All right, there's that. Now, another thing that I was going to do is I was going to I actually ordered them, then I decided not to, is the extension cables that make this a little prettier looking, but I'm not here for show. I'm not going to waste money on something that I absolutely don't need. It's actually could possibly in the future cause issues because you have two more connections that you have. You got to connect them to this, then put this. You got to put this on the back side or underneath, and so it's just it's a no-brainer for me not to do it. So let's hook up our CPU power up here in the top left. This is the one thing that's nice about large cases. If I did not have this, like for instance, if I was working with the Corsair 200R, which I've done 2 builds on now. Oh, I actually got to switch this around. I didn't even see that. Look at that. Okay. This connector is backwards from the one on my other motherboard. Yep. Interesting. Okay. All right. Hopefully there's not going to be an issue here with it's a little harder to plug in because I got to twist the cable around to meet it. There we go. All right. We got that, and we have our main motherboard connector that we're going to put in here, which this is nice because it didn't change. All these connectors, since I'm not putting in a power supply and you're not seeing me put in a power supply, all these connectors have little clasps on them, and you should hear like you just heard on this one. Up there you didn't. It was because I was holding on to it while I was pushing in, but I know that it's connected. But all these have these little clasps, so when you push it in, you should hear that audible click. If not, you should see it visually lock and engage, and then try to pull on it, and see where it goes from there. Now, one thing that we are possibly going to have an issue with, I might have to rewire, is I got this fan connector here, which there's no more fan connectors right here. I might be able to come up here or something. Not quite sure yet. We'll have to figure that one out. Got my audio connector. We'll hook up. We have our USB front ports. We have our 3.0 connector. Oh, I gotta take this off. So the other motherboard had this thing that I had to put on this. Unfortunately, I gotta stand in front of the camera here to do this. Ah, boy, that sucker does not want to come off. So there's a there's another connector that's on this USB 3.0 cable, and it's got to come off in order to put it in the new connector, because my old motherboard didn't have it. So it came with this. I might have to get a pair of pliers and take this off. Wait. Yeah. Okay, let me go get a pair of pliers. I only had a small pair, but let's see if we can get this off. Boy. Not liking that. There we go. Yeah, this is what it is. Alright, so now we can take this and put it around here, because now those pieces that I took off, they're actually mounted to the board, which is better. So now we can put this in here like so, and it's much more stable. Then we have our SATA drives, which we gotta figure out which ones we want. What we're gonna do here is 1 and 2. So put that one there. Oh, this one's got to get turned around, I think. Put this one there. And this one right there. Okay, so I used SATA ports 2, and then I can't read the other ones, but I put them in a line. So, it's fine. This is my computer. You can put them in 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever you want to do. This is just the way I'm doing it. And now we have to figure out what we're going to do for that fan connector. I may not worry about that on camera, but I also have another fan connector down here that I have to worry about. It's actually going to have to get lengthened, or I'm going to have to bring it in through here, because it's just not going to reach. And I have, let's see, I have an M.2 fan, I have a water pump, and a chassis fan. So it's got to come over to one of those guys. And I have this fan, can actually get dropped in right here. All right, so we have two fan connectors that we gotta fuss with now. So I'm going to do that off camera. Okay, so I went ahead and did the small cable management. It took me about 10 minutes, just for the 2 rear fans that I had to figure out. So I ran them both to the lower fan headers down here. So next, all we have to do is put in the graphics card. So exciting. We are going to put it in, and you should always put it in the very top slot. Okay. There we go. You should hear that clasp. And we're going to put in the thumb screws. You know what I'm gonna have to find though, off camera, is I'm gonna have to find the extra one of these plates here that go on the back. I'm gonna have to dig through my stuff, my old stuff, and find one, because if the Wi-Fi card's not going back in, well, I'm gonna need a to cover that hole up. But I know I have it. I could probably find it within a few minutes. So, all right. So that is that. I'm actually going to bring this computer into my office, hook it all up, and I'll get another shot of the RGB going and all that. So stick around. Okay, so as you can see, we got it back here in the office, and I got it all hooked up. I also got the antenna. I opted to actually mount the antenna for the Wi-Fi right here. So I just used the adhesive the Velcro adhesive that you can put on like walls and whatnot. I just thought it kind of looked cool right there. It kind of looks like, I don't know, kind of looks like Batman up there, one ear. But I just thought that kind of looked cool. So that's where I put that, and we're gonna do our first power on and see what happens. I just want to see the inside light up. Let's take this off so you can get a better visual. So we have our RGB down there for the ROG, and we have our Strix. Now that RGB isn't going to get going until I power the PC on, but nevertheless, look at that. Now I did forget to show that I forgot to hook this up, just the connector here, and I forgot to put the fan on, but I went ahead and did that, so it just connects up there. I know it's kind of difficult to see, but I don't have my flashlight with me now. So it is all hooked up. So let's power this on, and let's just see what the RGB RAM looks like. Look at that. Look how pretty that looks. Woo! We have our sequence numbers down there. Got our red fans. Looks good. All right, well, that's it. I got to enter the BIOS and do some stuff in there. So guys, one thing I did want to mention is be patient when you first launch your new components, mainly like a new CPU and a new motherboard. You're going to have to go into the BIOS and at least pretend to make changes. You just load the optimized defaults if you're not looking to overclock, because I'm not. So you have a choice of, like, it asked me like F1 for load the defaults without performance, without any increase in performance from the factory, which is all I want. So now you can see it actually just logged into Windows, so it wants me to probably do a couple things, which is fine. And just be patient, take your time, and it'll come too. So don't get discouraged. But that's all I got for you. So thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and definitely share the video so I can get out there. And until next time. Take care.